This is the February 25th, 2025 meeting of the Public Utilities Commission. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
I make the motion to approve the minutes of the consent agenda.
It'd be a motion just to approve the consent agenda.
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the Employee of the Month recognition.
Yes, Commissioners, the Employee of the Month for January is Janine Allen. Janine is our nominee for Employee of the Month. She's a valuable member of our team in the power plant and shows this in many ways. Her experience and knowledge help make her an excellent trainer of newer boilermen as they get their footing in the plant. Her abilities to help in the lab or assist the operator when needed are assets also. Always being on time, willing to fill in when needed, and her good attitude make Janine a well-deserving recipient of this honor. So congratulations to Janine Allen.
I'll make the motion to recognize Janine Allen as Employee of the Month for January 2025.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Our next item is the presentation of the wastewater treatment facilities plan.
Yes, Commissioners, we have Chris Swanson here from Bolton and Mink. Some of you may have remembered in November of '22, there was a request for proposal that was put out, and we wanted to conduct an infrastructure condition analysis of the wastewater treatment plant. So the purpose of the analysis was really to create a major component inventory and do a 20-year capital improvement. In October of 2023, the report was presented to the Commission, and from this report, the next step is the Phase 1 of a facility plan. And so that's what Chris is going to be doing a presentation on for you.
Thank you, Commission. Thank you, Ms. Matterfeld. My name is Chris Swanson with Bolton Mink. We've been working at the wastewater plant for the city of New Ulm and the New Ulm Utilities for a number of years, over 20 years, and thankful for the relationship that we have with Utility Council here and the work that we're able to do in New Ulm. As part of this process of identifying infrastructure that needed to be improved, the next step in order to get funding and kind of explore funding was a facility plan. That's just a fancy name for a report to dive deeper into the components that need to be upgraded. As part of this facility plan, we did what was called more of a targeted approach, where we looked at some certain things that we were going to go seek funding for that were shorter term items or higher on this list of improvements. As part of this presentation, I want to give everybody just a little background on the wastewater plant, because you can kind of understand where we've been, how it works, and do that. In this facility plan, though, and required items from the MPCA are looking at that background, looking at alternatives for the improvements, coming up with the costs, how that can impact user rates, and then a schedule for that. And so when we get into the public hearing portion, I will touch on some of these MPCA required items real quick again as we go through it. Certainly, if you have questions on anything I'm presenting, feel free to interrupt and be happy to chat more about those. So as I mentioned, the facility plan kind of dove into 6 targeted items that we wanted to look at. The Cortland Receiving Station, the main force main from the 20th Street lift station, some flow and load equalization ideas that we had as part of improvement and optimization for the wastewater plant, blower improvements, control, and solar project. This was addressing some of the aging equipment and some of the operational issues that the staff was seeing at the treatment plant, with the goal of going after funding. So you're going to hear that from me a few times, right? Because this is part of this these are expensive items, and we need to target certain funding as we go through this, and kind of come up with a phased approach, because this is kind of the first 5 to 10 years worth of work. There's larger projects on the back end of this, our infrastructure assessment as well. So originally constructed in 1972, that puts the plant at 52 years old, 53 this year. Much of the things that were identified are surrounding aging infrastructure. There are some limits that are on the horizon that cause that price tag, as you see, to go up to 110 million of potential future improvements. But the majority of things that we've addressed in this report are aging infrastructure items and things that need to be upgraded on a 50-plus-year-old facility. This kind of highlights some of the main areas of the treatment plant with a main lift station, pre-treatment where you remove sand and grit and garbage from the wastewater, clarifiers where you settle some of the heavier solids or waste initially and take that into biosolids processing. Then secondary treatment where we create ideal conditions for biology to grow and eat the wastewater. Sounds gross, but that's what these little bugs and bacteria do, and it works really well for cleaning up the wastewater. Clarifiers where we settle out these bugs so we can return them back into the stream to eat some more. Taking the solids that come off some of the clarifiers and treating them separately, and those are used as fertilizers on agricultural fields, and then disinfection, where we disinfect the wastewater before it is discharged to the Cottonwood and Minnesota River. A thing for a commissioner to notice on this list is the 1972 items. 54 years old. Typically, we don't anticipate concrete to last more than 75 years, and these are all large basins that are 1972 items that will need to be replaced likely in the next 20 years, and that's where you start to get into that $110 million price tag. So we've looked at some of this as part of our infrastructure condition assessment as areas where we need to build new basins so we could go back in, rip out old basins and put in new basins, and so you kind of got to get to this little spot where you're flipping back and forth and you need some green space to do some of this. The last item on that list was the Cortland Receiving Station, and that Cortland Receiving Station was built in 1995. It receives raw wastewater from the city of Cortland, and it screens it, takes out garbage and removes grit, things that can't be treated in the treatment plant. Raw wastewater is highly corrosive wastewater. It tends to break things down, and so the life expectancy of this type of equipment is 20 years. Pretty typical. If you do the math quick in your head, you can see that this one's at 30 years old, and so there's some needs for painting, replacing some piping, replacing equipment there. The alternatives to doing nothing is a failure we would anticipate with this, and you'd end up doing some emergency replacements and that next 5 years. This is a pretty common rehab for wastewater plants to take a look at these receiving stations. New Ulm Utilities is continually upgrading their 20th Street lift station because that is also receiving raw wastewater, and that equipment breaks down more regularly than once you kind of start to treat it, it's less corrosive on the stuff, and so we're able to get that to last longer. The second item we looked at in this facility plan was the 20th Street force main. So there's the pump station on 20th Street that receives the raw wastewater, screens out garbage. There's some pumps then that pump it to the wastewater treatment facility. That's through a single pipe right now. Gotta be careful I don't work off memory too much, because otherwise I'll give you bad information. That was also installed in 1972. Being a single force main that's used all the time, it's unable to be properly checked out. We know the length of pipes, or the longevity of pipe is typically 50 to 70 years, and so we anticipate this needing to be replaced in the short term. The idea here would be to build up a secondary pipeline that would take to the wastewater plant, and then you would have a dual pipelines in the future. So you could check out the old one, perhaps line it, or do some maintenance on that while you use the new one. And then in the future, you can be able to flip back and forth, maintain the two pipelines, and kind of have a long-term solution with two routes on that. The third item is controls and what's known as the supervisory control and data acquisition. It's kind of the brains of the facility as far as running all the equipment and making things operate properly, utilizing programmable logic controllers. This has exceeded its useful life in need of replacement. It's actually a project that we included in this to get some better cost data and determine if the utility was going to move forward with this as part of funding or through a budgetary item, and the utility is moving forward as part of their regular budget item and are proceeding with the control upgrades out there. I think it's always interesting as you look at some of this equipment that, electrical equipment that's been installed in, 70s, the 90s, and then you pull out your phone that maybe is only a year or two old, and no one would ever imagine, using a phone from the 1990s. But some of the most critical infrastructure in cities are that or older. And so keeping a close eye on electrical and controls is always an important aspect of making sure these facilities run well. One of the ideas that was also had was looking at the EQ basin for equalizing some of the heavy loads that come from industry as part of this, and that would help optimize the plant. This also had an added benefit of providing some expansion for biosolids with some of the heavier loads. And so we kind of looked at a combined idea of expanding the ATAD, or the biosolids system that treats the biosolids so they're safe to be discharged on agricultural land, and equalizing some of the heavy loads that come at different times from industry. This was kind of the most expensive portion of this project that I'll get to at the end, but a couple things have drove us to place this project on hold. One was there's some new regulations that you may have heard of coming out with PFAS. These forever chemicals that are out there. There's EPA and MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, has identified these as possible health concerns, starting to look at potential limits on how we place these biosolids on agricultural land. And from that, myself and the utility said it'd be good to wait and see how this plays out before we put more money into a biosolid system that could be obsolete should agricultural spreading of biosolids be limited. Additionally, one of the heavy industrial users, Kraft, had some, I don't know if they have unknowns, but with regards to utility, there was some unknown nature as to how heavy their loads were going to be long term. And since this could be a significant infrastructure investment into that industry, there needed to be some time again given that would maybe make that more clear as to what direction we would head with that in the future. Good project, expensive, but needed more information that time will allow for that to move forward. Another item on this is the blowers. So I mentioned the biosolids, or I'm sorry, not the biosolids, but the biology that eats the waste. We give it food from the sewage and the waste that comes through. It needs oxygen. These bugs need oxygen to eat this waste as well. And these blowers provide that oxygen that they need, just like we do to breathe. We need food, we need oxygen, so do these bacteria. And so the blowers, there's a couple different blowers that the facility uses. One are some older blowers that are huge 900 horsepower energy hogs from 1972. Those right now are backup blowers at the facility. More recently, in the last 10 or 15 years, you've installed some high efficiency turbo blowers. Those work very well. They've saved the utility a lot of money over the years on electrical bills. There's 2 of those blowers. The trouble with those is that they are becoming or have the potential to be obsolete in the near future. There is a very limited amount of staff that services these blowers, and the utility and myself have identified this as a weak area for redundancy and potential for should these, the gentleman who services these no longer service them, it could be a hole that would need an emergency replacement. And so we tried to come up with some ideas on different types of blowers that we could add in. Smaller blowers, higher efficiency than these large 900 horsepower, but give the operating staff some flexibility for bringing on smaller blowers with one of these turbo blowers. If a turbo blower goes down, we could have 2 or 3 blowers that would come on and provide the air needs of the facility to properly treat the wastewater. This is really a redundancy item on the most critical piece of infrastructure at the wastewater plant. And then the final item that we evaluate as part of this, and this again kind of goes back to, potential funding opportunities with some solar options at the facility. This always sounds good. It can produce electricity. There is a cost associated with this, and the simple payback for the amount of solar that we could get out here and use at the wastewater plant was about 25 years. So now you throw in a little funding and you're hoping to get it down to 10 or less, and it only comes down to about 15 to 17 years. And the lifespan of these solar panels are 15 to 20 years. So it doesn't make sense in this case based off the amount of land and availability to put up solar panels here that this works out for New Ulm at this time based off kind of some of the federal tax incentives and things that are available. But we wanted to go through that and dig into that a little detail. So this was also shelved due to lack of payback and also limited space. So I mentioned we need space for future expansion as well, and so we want to be careful that we're not placing solar panels all over the ground that need to be ripped up when we need to put up new basins. And so we tried to limit it to buildings that were already out there. And so that also limited how much area of solar panels we were able to obtain. There's a lot. Questions, comments, concerns right now, and otherwise I'll finish up. This hits the 6 projects and the costs associated with that. And so what came of this was a recommended critical infrastructure project that includes the blower improvements in the Cortland Receiving Station for about an $8 to $10 million project that we wanted to target Minnesota Pollution Control and Public Facilities Authority funding. State revolving fund funding that the utility in the city has used before to fund these type of improvements. We looked at the 20th Street Force Main and identified that as a good one to go after some federal earmarks with, and so that we were going to proceed and ask for federal money regarding that 20th Street Force Main. As I mentioned, the control systems are moving forward as a budgeted item, and at this time the EQ Basin ATAT expansion is on hold, and the solar energy was shelved due to lack of payback on stuff. So the facility plan is a requirement of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. One of the items on the tasks or your agenda here today is to have a public hearing and approve that, and then we can submit this to the MPCA and the Public Facilities Authority. So the MPCA is the regulatory agency, the Public Facilities Authority is the bank, if you will, that gives out the money, and so with the process here today, we're able to get this in and request these funds for the Cortland Receiving Station and the blower improvements. The advantage of this funding source is low interest loans. So they're typically well below market rate on the loans. And then there also is potential for some grant through the point source implementation grant on items that we would target. I wouldn't promise that at this point. I think that is always a highly competitive process, but some of the blower improvements could qualify for some of that work. Looking at an $8 to $10 million project, you run some simple math and number of connections and how much it cost to pay back $9 million. That's an impact of about a little over $8 per month per user, but my understanding is the utility has been budgeting for these items and intends to pay for that as part of the existing rate structure. The other advantage of a 20-year loan, right, is you don't have to come up with $9 million today, but you're spreading that cost over and have time to, do regular rate increases and budget through this as other loans and stuff come off the books as well. Schedule-wise, the state revolving fund follows the same schedule every year. Facility plans are due at the beginning of March. So we look for these approvals and public hearings in February from yourselves. We submit it, and then typically around the fall, September, October, they come out with their lists, the project priority list and the intended use plan. In order for this project to be funded, the state legislature does need to pass a bonding bill, and we'll see how that goes, but we're gonna do our part here in New Ulm to get in line for the money correctly. And so with that, then it would follow through, a design process, construction of these and startup of them hopefully in the next couple of years. So with that, I certainly would entertain any questions.
It's necessary, right?
It is.
We don't want any breakdowns.
Yeah, it's kind of the least fun piece of infrastructure cities have, unfortunately, right? Because everybody keeps flushing their toilets, and they don't care where it goes. But cities and part of the clean water and enjoying rivers and lakes, it's about cleaning up the wastewater. Yep.
Well, it sounds like we could rehab, but it's a little scary to do that.
And the operations staff continues to rehab, does a lot of maintenance out there, and it just, as you continue to age, things have to be replaced, and you end up with some of these larger capital improvements projects. And certainly I wish this was it, right? And you wouldn't see me for 20 years, but that won't be the case, right? So we go through this, and by 27, 28, I'm afraid I'll be standing back up here talking about the next big things that need to get done. So, it's good to stay on top of all these things, progress through them, and kind of just get used to regular projects at this infrastructure. Just like you see road projects every year, this is kind of one of those. That stuff gets done at treatment plants every couple of years.
So the plan is not to do a rate increase for this? It's part of the current rate schedule?
Well, I think part of it is going to be in the current plan for, what the rates will do. Part of it will be funded through what we have now.
Sure.
But I believe we have a rate study that actually is going to be done this year too. So this will be included in that
And that's
to kind of see where we're at.
so no
Yep.
immediate rate changes, but
immediate.
potentially
Yep.
from the study.
Yep, exactly.
I'll make the motion to receive an order filed, the presentation from Chris Swanson of Bolton and Mink Incorporated on the wastewater treatment facilities plan.
I'll second that.
We've got a motion and a second. Are there any more questions? Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Our next item is a public hearing on the wastewater treatment facilities plan and improvements within. And this is a public hearing. Anybody has any questions?
If I may, Commissioner, as part of the public hearing, the MPC requires a couple of things to be touched on in the public hearing, and I'd just like to quickly touch on those for utility. As you can see, the wastewater plant is located at 3 Tower Road in New Ulm. This is a picture of the location of that facility. As I mentioned to you, what a facility plan consists of are a number of items that include going through alternatives, coming up with project costs, potential user impacts, and schedules. I've touched on the background, the Cortland Receiving Station, the blower improvements, and other projects that have either been proceeded with or placed on hold right now. From those alternatives, we came up with the recommended critical infrastructure project that included the Cortland Receiving Station rehabilitation and blower improvements to add efficiency and operational flexibility to the facility. This project is estimated to cost between $8 and $10 million and has an impact on user rates of a little over $8 per month as you divide out the cost over all users. Planning to submit this facility plan upon approval and find out regarding funding in the fall of this year and then proceed with design and construction through 26 and completing in 2027. Thank you.
We need a resolution.
I'll offer the resolution closing the public hearing, receiving and acceptance of the wastewater treatment facilities plan as prepared by Bolton and Mink Incorporated, and directs the submittal of said plan to the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, MPCA.
I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second on the resolution. Is there any more discussion?
Counselor Skillings,
Yes.
Counselor Williams,
Yes.
Counselor Bugler,
Yes.
President Shaughness.
Resolution passes. Thank you. Next business is email archiving appliance.
Yes, Commissioners, this is to update and replace our archiving appliance through the IT department. This is a budgeted item for 2025.
I'll make a
the
motion.
to authorize the city manager to approve the quote provided by Intradyne for a 2 TB archiving appliance with a 3-year support in the amount of $16,318.50.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is request for managed GIS services.
Yes, the attached document to this agenda item is a proposal for a managed services agreement to our GIS infrastructure. Basically, the goal of this is to ensure that our system is running efficiently, up to date, and is aligned with our organizational goals. Through this process, we expect to have oversight, proactive support, regular maintenance, integration of GIS tools and applications. So we've developed this into 3 phases. The first phase being the assessment and the planning phase. Here, the individuals will go in, they'll evaluate our current GIS system, identify any improvements that are needed or any specific service requirements or customization needs, and then at that point, develop a transition plan. Phase 2 then would develop monitoring tools. It would integrate any data systems that are needed or work through any compatibility issues. And phase 3 basically would be a continuous monitoring and support of our GIS. That particular item would be a annual service agreement with the organization that is chose. This system would be used for all 5 of our utilities, and it would also integrate to our work order system. It would integrate to the city GIS and then also to our billing software. It was a 2025 budgeted item, and as I said before, phase 3 then would be a continuous line item going forward.
I'll make a motion to authorize the staff to request proposals for a managed service agreement for Geographic Information System, GIS, for the New Ulm Public Utilities.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is an HDR Engineering General Engineering Services.
Yes, Commissioners. This is a proposal. It's from HDR Engineering. It's for general engineering services, and this is a very common practice to have engineers, electrical engineers, gas engineers, whatever it may be, on hand for general engineering questions. Should a situation ever develop into a project, at that point, then those engineering services would be billed towards the project rather than this general services agreement. This is a by hour and not to exceed proposal, so we'll get charged for the questions that we ask. If we don't have any, there'll be no charge. This is a proposal that will allow the utility to have experienced electrical engineers available for questions, but not necessarily having to have them on staff.
Make a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the proposal from HDR Engineering Incorporated for general engineering services for 2025 in the amount of $32,500.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Everyone in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Industrial condensate line replacement.
Yeah, this is a quote actually to purchase the pipe to replace the condensate line that goes down to Firmenich from behind the power plant. Actually, we're replacing from the power plant to the vault just beside the electrical building. In 2018, we had replaced the balance of the pipe from the majority of the rest of it. Last October, we had a leak, dug it up, and was hoping to only a small leak. It was found that the pipe had failed pretty much completely. We chased it for quite some 40, 50 feet before we could find viable pipe to tie into. That does not mean it was good pipe. It was just we could tie in and put a temporary patch in. And that's why we're looking to do this project as early as practical in the spring. Probably a June project. We got two quotes on here. R.E. Carlson was the lower quote, and they have been our vendor for steam pipe and condensate pipe for quite some time. Any questions?
I can't get it up right now, but if I remember right, wasn't the two quotes, one of them was more piping than the other or something, right?
Yeah, the one that put a expansion loop in there, where we already have an expansion joint. So we didn't need that linear feet of pipe. We'll just be using the expansion joint we already have.
Okay. So that makes up the difference for the, okay.
I'll make the motion to authorize the city manager to accept the quote from R.E. Carlson for the replacement condensate pipe in the amount of $31,200.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Water Department hoist replacement.
Yeah, this is to replace the hoist in the water department shop. It's a 9,000-pound hoist that's, they had figured it was an early 90s hoist. We didn't find an exact date on it. You'll see we got a quote to repair it that was call it $5,500. The cost of a new 12,000-pound hoist, so again, it's a third again as big as $9,774. We also have attached a letter from the repair technician that recommended this hoist has other issues, and some of the pipes are getting to be obsolete. So at this time, it's just felt it's time to part company with this and get a newer, bigger, heavier hoist. And it is a low profile, so it'll fit just fine in our current facility.
I'll I'll make a motion to receive and order filed the quote from Upward Hoist Installers LLC for the replacement of the water department shop hoist in the amount of $9,774.
I'll second that.
Excuse me, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Rehabilitation plan for wells 20 and 21.
Yeah, this was a non-budgeted item. As you know, last year, we had well 23 has failed, and we're trying to work our way through the intricacies of rebuilding that well and do an overshot well. Permitting and lead times for getting the technology here to rebuild the well in place is finding it that it may be timely to rebuild these two wells to make sure we have the maximum amount of water capacity to serve the residents of New Ulm. We're hoping to get well 23 done as soon as possible, but this is us making sure we have enough capacity and hopefully some extra, so nobody has to deal with any future issues. It's just being proactive. We have found that some of the staff that are now with Carlson McCain actually did work in the well field on wells 26 and 27, which are right adjacent to the 23 and 22. In developing them when they were built new in the 90s. So really, we're using their expertise and their prior knowledge of the hydrogeology out there to get it done.
So work has started on 23, right?
We're working on it, but we're working our way through the permitting,
It hasn't started.
and we've
Actual.
got not actual physical
Yeah.
work. We're working through
We just had a-
multiple government agencies.
Yeah,
Just had a meeting with all of the parties involved last Friday to try to get some
Clarity?
progress on this.
so this 20 and 21, would you start that at the same time, or
No, we do that as soon as possible.
to get
They're
that
gonna
ready
develop a spec
before
right
the?
now, and I would
okay.
like to do one, if not both of them, early summer as soon as practical.
Yeah,
It'll
Good.
potentially be over a year probably before 23 will be done, if not longer.
Yeah, and that's provided we don't have a flood or anything else that gets in the way.
thank you.
Would those have been scheduled for any rehabilitation work?
They're in our
Anyway.
cycle, yeah, and this is,
We're just pulling it ahead.
we're trying to get the most we can as quick as we
Sure.
can. These are two of our bigger wells.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So we're
think they were
getting-
on the schedule maybe for next year,
Next
One of
year's
them's on the
fall.
schedule in the next couple of years,
Yeah.
yes.
so.
If I remember, 23 was biggest well, or biggest producer,
It is, but 20 and 21 are close
right
seconds.
behind it.
We've got 4 wells, 27, 23, 20, and 21, that are all between, say, 550 and 650 gallons a minute. So they're all very close.
I'll make the motion to authorize the city manager to accept the proposal to develop a well rehabilitation plan for wells 20 and 21 from Carlson McCain in the amount of $5,500.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Our next item is purchase of a 2025 Polaris Ranger XP.
Well, yes, Commissioners, this is used in the gas department. It's used for leak detection, snow removal, among other things. It gets heavily used. And it was a budgeted item in 2025, so it's under budget.
I'll make a motion to receive and order filed the quote from Parallel Ag to purchase a 2025 Polaris Ranger XP in the amount of $31,789.91 for the New Ulm Gas Department.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. 2025 Ford F-150 4x4 Super Cab XL pickup.
Yes, this pickup is replacing a 1996 Chevy one-ton. Has already been declared surplus and sold on GovDeals. We got two quotes. We got a quote from the state bid, but the local company, Chuck Spaeth, was able to beat the state bid price, so we're going with him. It also was a budgeted item in the 2025 budget.
Yes, I've got a question about that. If you have a question. You've got the state bid, but Ford's price is here.
No, this is their price.
This is their price. It's a discounted price?
This is their discounted price.
Okay.
So if you see here, Chuck Spaeth Ford's amount was $45,435. If you look on the last page of the agenda item is from Midway, and that was $45,547. Chuck Spaeth actually brought their price down from their list price down to $45,000.
It's that state bid, that was,
They're comparing to the state bid.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to authorize the city manager to approve the purchase of a 2025 Ford F-150 4x4 Super Crew LX pickup from Chuck Spaeth Ford in the amount of $45,435.40.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is Indian Point Lift Station complete rehab.
Yeah, back in last fall, the wastewater plant was doing some routine maintenance, and they found that the discharge pipe at the Indian Point Lift Station has a major leak. So we did do a temporary repair, but we need to do a full reconstruct on that. So we were able to put that into the 2025 budget in the amount of $75,000, so it's under budget. So we're just asking to get that work done as soon as possible.
I'll make a motion to authorize the city manager to accept the proposal from Electric Pump Incorporated for pumps and wet well piping and accessories, slab replacement, and mobilization and installation of the Indian Point Lift Station complete rehabilitation in the amount of $71,060.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Wastewater treatment plant outfalls repair.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a proposal from Bolton and Mink, our consultant. We have two discharge points that go into the Minnesota River and the Cottonwood River. They have, on a visit, they had observed significant signs of riverbank erosion and sloughing in both of the outfalls. So this is for the engineering services to start the design of prepare plans and specifications, and then also do the permitting with the DNR and Army Corps of Engineers. The entire project is budgeted for the amount of $100,000. This is just for the engineering part of that project.
So do we feel this price kind of falls in line with the overall project budget? Or
Yes.
will it- Yeah, that'll be covered in there.
Make the motion to authorize the city manager to accept the proposal from Bolton and Mink for the repair of wastewater treatment plant outfalls in the amount of $23,400.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Year-end carryovers for the year ended December 31st, 2024.
Yes, Commissioners, this is more of a housekeeping issue. We do this every year. When the books are closed for 2024, there's many times purchase orders that are outstanding. There's projects that have budgeted amounts that have not been expended. You can see the list here. I won't read through them all, but basically what happens is by your approval, we're able to carry those budget amounts over, and then the budget is adjusted for this amount so that accounts aren't over budget when there's an open purchase order.
I'll make the motion to approve the year-end budget carryovers for the year ended December 31st, 2024.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Reports of claims.
I'll make the motion to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $3,885,010.63.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner comments? Anyone have anything? Meeting is adjourned.